Major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
After months of warnings, the UN officially declares famine in Gaza, the first to affect the Middle East. The A3+ group of the United Nations Security Council welcomes the reactivation of the tripartite mechanism of neighboring countries on the crisis in Libya and reiterates its call for a credible political process and the Libyan leadership to achieve free elections and the unification of national institutions in the country. And a source from the Algerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs highlights the false nature of the French statement regarding the notice published in the official French Gazette on the suspension of the 2013 agreement. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. First in our news, and on August 19, the French Ministry for Europe and Foreign Affairs published a notice in the official Gazette of the French Republic concerning the suspension of the 2013 Algerian-French agreement on visa exemptions for holders of diplomatic and service passports. This notice attributes responsibility for the suspension of the agreement to Algeria, stating that Algeria ceased to apply it as of 11 May 2025. When approached on this subject, a source at the Algerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs emphasized to APS the false nature of the French allegation. Indeed, our source specified that the restrictions on access to French territory imposed on holders of Algerian diplomatic and service passports were announced by the French side itself. Last February, these measures were denounced by the Algerian side in an official statement issued by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on February 26, 2025. In this respect, the ministry source recalled that it was on February 13, 2025 that the first Algerian diplomatic passport holder was denied access to the French territory. This precedent was followed by a second case on February 26, 2025, as indicated in the statement issued by the Algerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. At the time, official requests for explanations were sent to the French authorities in both cases. Our source added that in this case, the faith of the French side, or the bad faith of the French side, is clear. It is France that bears responsibility for the first blatant violations of the agreement in question. The Minister of Knowledge, Economy, Startups and Micro-Enterprises, Nordin Wadah, has reaffirmed from the Japanese city of Yokohama Algeria's commitment to strengthening Africa's position as an active economic power in the international system through the optimal investment of promising energies and the consolidation of the values of solidarity, unity and strategic integration. In a speech delivered during the session on economic issue at the 9th Tokyo Conference Summit, TICAD 9, where he is participating as representative of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, the Algerian minister pointed out that the African continent is at a decisive stage in its development and economic trajectory, which requires placing economic transformation at the center of priorities. To achieve this, Nordin Wadah emphasized four fundamental pillars led by innovation and technology as the true drivers of development, especially through digital transformation and artificial intelligence, highlighting the fundamental role of African startups in creating wealth and generating employment. The Peace and Security Council, PSC, of the African Union has adopted, at the initiative of Algeria and under its presidency, a communiqué setting out a clear process for strengthening complementarity between continental security and governance architectures as part of its active contribution to promoting peace, security and development in Africa. This communiqué was adopted at a PSC meeting chaired by the permanent representative of Algeria to the AU and chair of the Council for the month of August, Mohamed Khalid. The details in this report by our colleague Saad Bouazi.
During the meeting, which was devoted to strengthening coordination between the PSC and the African Governance Architecture and African Peace and Security Architecture AGA-APSA platform and the Subcommittee on Human Rights, Democracy and Governance, emphasis was placed on the urgent need to strengthen synergy and institutional coordination between the two architectures. This approach aims to harmonize initiatives and coordinate their implementation in order to achieve collective results in the areas of human rights, democracy, governance, early warning and conflict resolution, thereby contributing to the achievement of the objectives of Agenda 2063. In view of the current challenges, the PSC expressed its deep concern about the rise of geopolitical threats, including foreign interference and the illegal exploitation of the continent's natural resources. The PSC therefore called for an urgent response from the AU through the establishment of unified mechanisms to address crises and threats, consolidate African sovereignty, and protect the interests of the continent. On the proposal of Algeria, the Peace and Security Council also called on the AU Commission, in coordination with the AGA-APSA platform, the Subcommittee on Human Rights, Democracy and Governance, and the African Peer Review Mechanism APRM, to establish a comprehensive matrix defining all AU legal frameworks on governance, human rights and peace and security, to assess their effectiveness and to develop a coherent action plan to address complex challenges. The PSC also urged member states that have not yet done so to ratify the instruments and treaties relating to the AU's common values, notably the African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance, ACDEG, inviting them to incorporate them into their national legislation. In the same context, the communique called on member states to provide the necessary political support for the implementation of the report on governance in Africa prepared by the AGA-APSA platform under the supervision of the African Peer Review Mechanism, whose forum of heads of state and government is chaired by the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, until February 2026. Affirming that human beings are at the heart of sustainable development, the communique stressed the importance of adopting a comprehensive and integrated approach to strengthening democracy, human rights, and good governance, while stressing the need for the active participation of young people and women and the mobilization of civil society organizations, the media, and the academic world in order to bring the PSC and, through it, the AU closer to the African people.
To the situation in the Middle East now, where the UN has officially declared famine in Gaza, the first to hit the Middle East after its experts warned that 500,000 people were in a catastrophic condition. The head of the UN Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, Tom Fletcher, said that famine in Gaza could have been avoided without the systematic obstruction of the Zionist entity, adding that this famine will and must haunt all the world. According to UN experts, more than 500,000 people in Gaza are facing catastrophic conditions, the highest level of food distress in the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification (IPC), characterized by starvation and death. This figure, based on information collected up to August 15, is expected to rise to nearly 641,000 by the end of September. According to the IPC, this is the most serious deterioration in the situation since it began analyzing the Gaza Strip. The IPC reiterated that famine is occurring when three factors are present. At least 20% of households, 1 in 5, are facing extreme food shortages. At least 30% of children under 5, which is 1 in 3, are suffering from acute malnutrition, and at least 2 out of 10,000 people are dying of hunger every day. The situation is a result of the escalation of Zionist aggression against the people of Gaza in recent months, which had led to massive population displacement, combined with restricted access to food supplies caused by the Zionist entity. The UN-backed Integrated Food Security Phase Classification (IPC) network has warned that the Gaza Strip is now facing its worst-case scenario of famine, with unprecedented levels of malnutrition and infant mortality. According to its data, food consumption in most of the territory has reached the famine threshold, while acute malnutrition in the Gaza Strip has reached its peak. And more than 20 countries and the European Union have condemned the Zionist entity's plan to build thousands of new housing units in the occupied West Bank, east of the holy city of Al-Quds, calling it unacceptable and a violation of international law. In a joint statement reported by this Palestinian news agency Wafa, 21 countries and the EU denounced the plan announced on Wednesday by the Zionist occupier, calling for its immediate cancellation. Salboazi has more.
The joint statement was published by the foreign ministers of several EU member states, the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, Japan, as well as the High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Vice President of the European Commission, Kaja Kallas. The signatories of the statement said that the decision by the Zionist entity to build settlements in the E1 area of East Al-Quds is unacceptable and constitutes a violation of international law, condemning the plan and demanding in the strongest terms that the decision be immediately cancelled. They also called on the Zionist occupation to cease building settlements as stipulated in Security Council Resolution 2334 and to lift its restrictions on the funds of the State of Palestine, the same source added. The Palestinian presidency has welcomed the joint statement by 21 countries, emphasizing that the Zionist settlement plan in the occupied West Bank was unacceptable and constituted a violation of international law. In a statement reported by the Palestinian news agency Wafa, the Palestinian presidency described this international statement signed by 21 countries and the European Union as an important and necessary step that must be complemented by pressure on the Zionist occupation to back down from these dangerous settlement plans that separate the south of the West Bank from its center.
And the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, has said that the humanitarian situation is deteriorating in the Gaza Strip, which has been subjected to barbaric Zionist attacks and a total blockade for several months, specifying that famine, malnutrition, and the housing crisis are worsening in the Palestinian enclave. Palestinians are being killed and wounded on a daily basis, and famine and malnutrition continue to worsen. In addition to a serious housing crisis, OCHA said in a statement, meeting the current housing needs of approximately 1.4 million people requires 3,500 truckloads of tents, plastic, sheeting, and basic household items, not counting further or future displacement that could increase the needs. The Commissioner General of the United Nations Relief and Workers Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, Philippe Lazzarini, has warned that the most starving children in the Gaza Strip are doomed to die if aid does not reach them urgently. In a statement published today on social media, the UN official said that hunger levels were most severe in the north, particularly in the city of Gaza, where an estimated 1 million people still live. He announced that an assessment of the extent of hunger in the besieged enclave would soon be published, adding that UNRWA health centers had recorded a six-fold increase since March in the number of children suffering from acute malnutrition. If urgent measures are not taken, the children are doomed to die, he stressed. Lazzarini added that Palestinians in Gaza are already dying of hunger, and there will undoubtedly be more. Egypt has expressed its concern about the Zionist occupation's plan to take control of Gaza, which has been plagued by a genocidal war since October 2023 and an unprecedented humanitarian crisis, according to the Palestinian news agency Wafa. The Egyptian Ministry of Foreign Affairs said in a statement that Egypt was following with deep concern the developments in the implementation of the Zionist plan to take control of the cities of the Gaza Strip as part of a new attempt to consolidate its illegal occupation of Palestinian territories in blatant violation of international law and international humanitarian law. It strongly condemned the Zionist escalation and its policy of expanding its occupation of Palestinian territories both in the occupied West Bank and in the Gaza Strip, the persistence of systematic crimes against civilians, and the continuation of plans for the forced displacement of Palestinians, which will only exacerbate the already tense situation. Now the I3+ group at the UN Security Council, made up of Algeria, Somalia, Sierra Leone, Guyana, have strongly condemned the military attacks carried out by the Zionist entity against Syria, reaffirming their full support for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of that country. Speaking on behalf of the group, Algeria's permanent representative to the United Nations, Amr Ben Jama, stressed that such actions, which blatantly violate Syria's sovereignty, the 1974 disengagement agreement, international law, and the UN Charter, only serve to exacerbate tensions and further destabilize the region, adding that foreign interference must be rejected. Let's listen to Mr. Ben Jama.
We must be clear in rejecting external interference that exacerbates instability in Syria. The A3+ reiterates its strong condemnation of Israel's repeated military action in Syria. Such actions flagrantly violate Syria's sovereignty. The 1974 disengagement agreement, international law, and the UN Charter, ultimately. They only serve to aggravate tensions and further destabilize the region. The A3+ reaffirms its unwavering support for Syria's sovereignty, unity, independence, and territorial integrity.
The A3+ also expressed their unwavering support for Syria's sovereignty, unity, independence, and territorial integrity, as well as for political process led by and for Syrians and supported by the United Nations. And still, the A3+ group has renewed its call for a credible Libyan-led and Libyan-owned political process that leads to the holding of a fair and free national election at the unification of the state institutions in the country. Algeria's permanent representative to the United Nations, Amr Ben Jama, speaking on behalf of the A3+ group, said that during a UN Security Council session held Thursday to discuss the situation in Libya, that a political solution will remain out of reach as long as foreign powers continue to interfere in Libyan internal affairs. Let's listen to him again.
Political solution in Libya will remain elusive as long as foreign power continue to use this country as a theater for proxy conflict and interfere in the national political process. We align ourselves with the communique issued by the African Peace and Security Council on July 24th, calling for the immediate and unconditional withdrawal of all foreign forces, all foreign fighters, and all mercenaries from Libyan territories. Libya's unity, sovereignty, and territorial integrity must be respected.
And the President of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic and Secretary General of the Polisario Front, Brahim Ghali, has reaffirmed that the UN African Union settlement plan is the only agreed framework for the decolonization of Western Sahara, which is occupied by Morocco, according to the Sahrawi press agency SPS. Let's listen to more details with our colleague Saad Bouazi.
President Ghali underlined that this year marks the 50th anniversary of the invasion of Western Sahara by the occupying state of Morocco on 31st October 1975 in a blatant violation of the United Nations Charter and the inalienable right of the Sahrawi people to self-determination and independence. With regard to human rights, he said that Morocco's illegal and continuing military occupation of Western Sahara continues to constitute the most serious violation of the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination, which has led to systematic and blatant violations of the political, economic, social, and cultural rights of the Sahrawi people. These violations, he continued, have been documented and condemned by numerous international and African organizations, as well as by various United Nations bodies. The Sahrawi president warned that Sahrawi political prisoners, foremost among them the Gdaymizi group, continue to live in tragic conditions in the prisons of the Moroccan occupier, where they are subjected daily to degrading and punitive practices. He called on the UN Secretary General to take all necessary measures to ensure the immediate and unconditional release of all Sahrawi political prisoners, adding that the Moroccan occupying authorities continue to pursue a scorched earth policy with the declared aim of uprooting the Sahrawis from their homes and lands as part of a systematic policy of colonialism, in addition to a policy of impoverishment, deprivation, exclusion and racial discrimination against the Sahrawis and the plundering of Sahrawi wealth in collusion with foreign parties. He also underlined that the Moroccan occupying forces, since their violation of the ceasefire on 13 November 2020, continue to use all types of weapons, including drones, to kill Sahrawi civilians, emphasizing that it constitutes a war crime under the statute of the International Criminal Court and a violation of the rules of international humanitarian law. He added that the Moroccan occupation continues to impose a military siege and a complete media blackout on the territory, demanding that the United Nations assume its moral and legal responsibilities towards the Sahrawi people, which requires the establishment of an independent and permanent mechanism to protect the fundamental rights of the Sahrawi people, and the expansion of the mandate of the United Nations mission for the referendum in Western Sahara, MINURSO, to include human rights.
That's the end of the news bulletin. We'll leave you now with our weekly program, and we'll meet you again tomorrow. Thank you. Goodbye.